Can someone please confirm if you're able to hear me clearly and able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, till now, we completed the transaction management and the JPA, and I clearly discussed about security. Okay. So, the it's a very important topic, and it's a very interesting as well as little bit complex, not that much simple like JPA or transaction management, because entire code is not written by the developer. Some of the code is taken care by the developer and some of the code is taken care by the framework. So that is a typical things which are given, and I'm going to start further on security. Okay. So guys, I again repeat the statements which I mentioned in the last class. Please make sure that everyone will attend daily on the classes. Okay. And everyday practice is mandatory. It's a you need to practice every day mandatory to understand the complete in and out on security. Because when you go for interview, okay, anyone can answer JPA questions, anyone can answer transaction management questions. Only few people only can be answering this JPA, I mean security related stuff. It's a very important. And if you have a knowledge on security, it will be useful for your entire career. Not only in this, it will be really useful for your entire career. Okay. So by default, what I'm going to trying to message is, I mean, what I'm going to trying to give a message is that please make sure that utilize these particular classes and implement the securities, and we are going to have a well classes, good classes we are going to have, and I'm giving you clear in-depth knowledge on the security. Okay. Before I proceed further, anyone, any questions? As of now, before I proceed further, anyone is having any questions, guys?
I have one question. Can I share my screen?
Okay, sure. 1 second. I need to give a permission. Yes.
Trying to run this code. Whenever when the condition is getting failed, okay, these else blocks need to be executed, but it is not executing. It is executing this statement.
Which statement it is executing?
This statement: employee creation is successful.
It's success means fail, right? Correct, only, right?
Yes. So see the output in the DB. See.
Employee creation is success,
For
instance
cursor.
creation is failed.
Yes.
Correct, only, right?
So, but the data is not coming for this employee creation, is no.
It will
The
roll back, right?
it okay, it will roll back.
It's roll back, right?
Okay, means first it will save the data and after getting
After that, it will
executing.
roll back. If your insurance is failed, employee also will be rolled back, right? That is a transaction management, right?
Okay, so this audit table will have this data only, no? Okay.
Correct. Audit
Okay.
partial commit, partial rollback. Audit need to be committed. Employee insurance, if everything is success, employee should be success, insurance should be success. Then only data will be there in employee table, insurance table. But audit table, I want every time data to be available.
Oh,
That is
okay.
a partial commit as well as partial rollback.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you can unshare your screen. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions by anyone? Okay. So, Imam, can you go on mute if you don't mind?
Sorry.
Yes. Ajrul, you have any question? Sir, you are keep on muting and unmuting. Kindly make sure that. Okay, thank you. Right. Now, first of all, security implementation. So, what exactly is security is in a normal day-to-day life? Security means our independent house or our gated community flat will have a security. What the security guy will do? He will be he will make sure that only authenticated people, a valid people, trusted people only entered into the premises, others cannot enter. For example, in my community, if some person came, the security guy will ask why you came, to whom we need to meet. And for example, the person tells that I need to meet 101 or 201 flat. Then the security guy will call. Okay. So 101 someone came. If at all 101 person give a permission, yes, can you can ask him to come. Based on his permission, then only the security guy can be, I mean, he can enter into our flat. Otherwise, he will be completely rejected at the entrance only. The same procedure is for IT industry. The same security will be applied. For example, I am accessing some data in application. I'll not provide the data to everyone. I want to keep a security. I'll not provide the data to everyone. I want to keep the security. Okay. So by default, what exactly things are going to happen? Whenever I'm asking the data, it will typically redirected to login page. Okay. It's going to typically redirected to login page. And if we enter username as well as password, okay, if we enter username as well as password, if the user ID and password is correct, then it will be redirected to home page or whatever the page. Otherwise, it will redirect it to login page only. So whenever user is trying to access home page, Spring is designing a security module. You are asking localhost 8080 tickets slash all. Okay. Now this security module will be there in Spring, which will automatically redirecting the data or redirecting the page to login page. And we need to enter some username and password in the login page, and security framework will verify is that username, is that password is correct or wrong. If the data is accurate, if the data is correct, then it will be redirected to home page. If the user ID password is wrong, it will be redirected to login page again. This is the meaning of a security. Correct, right? When I compared with my real-time scenario with my IT scenario, day-to-day scenario, same, right? That itself is a security. Now, on a framework point of view, how much code we need to write? Anyone worked on previously on security point of view? How much code we need to write? Maybe we need to construct a login page, and we need to write a security filter. If you are accessing home page, it should be redirected to login page to make sure that it is authenticated or not authenticated, right? Next one is, and user ID password will be there in the database. I need to write a code to comparison. And if the comparison is done, then it will be redirecting to whatever the page we are looking. So this is the a lot of code we need to write in a normal framework. Will you agree with me, guys?
Yes, sir.
So typical code we need to make sure. Okay. Now what I am going to do is the same ticket booking application. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. Sorry, it's a transaction agent, right? Ticket booking application underscore security. Okay. I'm going to copy paste the same ticket booking application code I'm adding with under security. I mean, just like I'm adding a code to security. Now, what it will do, first of all, whenever I access localhost 8080 tickets slash all, it will provide the data to me, right? I can create a ticket, I can update a ticket, I can delete a ticket, I can get a ticket, everything I can perform, isn't it? But I don't want to expose my endpoint or my functionality to everyone. So for example, I'm running the code, the same code. I'm running this particular code. Now it is called that. And here I'm making a call localhost colon 8080 tickets slash all. So I got this ticket data, right? Isn't it? Or ticket slash one, I'm getting the ticket ID one. Maybe I think we wrote with the name, I guess, with the ticket slash Ram, right? It is directly giving me the data. I don't want to give this particular data. I want to implement security here. Okay, sir. I'm going to implement security here. How much time it require? How much effort is required? For example, your manager or lead is giving a task to you. This is the ticket booking application. You implement security. So what you need to do that? First of all, you need to create a login page. Am I right? Yes or no? And you need to redirect the code. If at all, if they are accessing create application or update the ticket or delete the ticket or retrieve the ticket or retrieve anything they are accessing, you need to redirect the call to login page. Okay. After that, user ID password will be entered in the screen and user ID password should be compared. If the user ID password is matching, then it will be redirected to actual link. If it is not matching, I mean, if the user ID password is not matching at all, then it will be redirected back to the application. This much of code I need to write. Ideally, how much time we take, guys? Any idea? How
At
much
least
time?
at least 2 sprints.
Yes, maybe at least. Yes. What I am going to do is I'm stopping my application. Okay. I am going to add a dependency. Okay. I'm going to form.xml. Here, string boot. I'm adding one more dependency. Starter security. I'm adding one dependency. Spring boot starter security. Right? Just I added the dependency. Spring boot starter security. Now it is downloading some jars. Yeah. Yes, it's done. Now I'm running the code. Run as Spring Boot app. Now we'll see here. Okay. Now I'm asking ticket slash all. Same API I'm asking. So it came login page. Sir, I'm not asking login page here. I'm not what I'm doing here. I am asking all tickets method only. Just now previously without adding security dependency. So localhost 8080 tickets slash all. Actually, I'm asking ticket slash all only. Then it is automatically redirect into login page. So typically it is giving a login page. It's not created by me. Right? It's not created by developer. Framework only created this. Now, for example, if I'm writing sign in, it's asking me, please fill out this field. I don't know what I need to type here. Admin. Again, it's asking admin. Whatever, anything I am typing, bad credentials. You cannot, unless until you don't know the user ID, you don't know the password, it is odd every time redirecting the page. Okay. If I give the framework, if you see here on the framework side, here we have a security. Hibernate ORM version. You see here, your security is updated and it is giving some password using generated security password. Okay. Now username is user and the password is the password. Okay. Username is typically user Rajan Kumar. Mr. Rajan Kumar. Thank you. Username is user and the password is whatever there in the console. It's giving me console some password, right? And I'm clicking on, then the data is given. Otherwise data is not given. 2 sprints of work I did in 2 minutes. Right? I added one jar. Simply I added only one jar. Like what I have done here, I added springboot starter security. Only this is a jar I added. So when security jars are there, what happened here? Automatically user is accessing home page, means all tickets. Maybe my home page is all tickets method. So whenever you are asking home page, it will be redirected to login page, and I entered username as user, password as some generated password, and both are correct. Then it is redirected back to my requested page. If anything is wrong, it is redirected back to login page only. The complete life cycle of the security without writing any code, maximum thing is taken care by the framework. Will you agree with me, right guys? Entire things are completely achieved by the framework only. Do you saw any framework till now in IT industry? Just adding some dependency in the pom.xml, completely getting a login page, comparison of user ID and password, and redirecting to the login page or redirecting to the requested page, completely security functionality. Why Spring Boot is given this feature? Means there are common principles. The logic is common, right? For every application, the logic is common, right? What logic is common? Any URL you are accessing, redirected to first time for the login page, redirection to login page for the first time, and user ID password comparison. If success, redirected to the home page. If a failure, redirected to the again login page.
Sir, here, so usually we need to create a JSP page and database
We
table.
no need to. We no need to. By default, framework is. I didn't create a JSP, right? Do you saw just I created a data JSP page? No. Did you saw that I created a database? No. Completely. If I write Spring Boot starter security, everything is taken care by the framework only. But
So if we write Spring Boot status security as well, so how it is checking the username and password in the database?
that is what I'm going to explain, right? I'm going to explain that only. The complete security 16 to 18 classes is only for that. Okay. What I'm trying to explain till now is, if you add a dependency, framework is completely gave you implementation. Okay, where you can leverage or you can change your logic, where you can create your own user, where you can create your own password, where you can do some changes. Like different strategies are there in Spring Boot. But the basic skeleton is username is user, password is generated by the system. Every time when you run, it will generate a new password. There is a default behavior. Okay, but I can change. That is what Spring Boot security 16 to 18 classes, which I'm going to teach, different permutations, different combinations on how you can create your own users, your own roles, your own security. Everything I'm going to teach. By default, the default behavior is, it's a completely boilerplate code only. And Spring Boot is completely giving this feature to anyone. They can use plug and play. If they add security jars in the class path, that's it. Security will be active and it will be working. Is that clear? Ma'am, someone who asked the question, is that clear?
Yes, sir, I'm clear.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions so far?
What
So
will
the
be the output if we click that from the Postman, the same URL? So what would be the
I'm
output? Now
going
it is
to
asking for
yeah. So Postman, it will take 5 to 6 classes. We'll go there. Okay. For example, if you ask me, it is going to redirect it to the login page only. In the Postman also, it is going to redirect it to login page. But I'll explain clearly how to handle in the Postman.
okay, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
So this security keys which password is generating by the framework.
Correct.
So how exactly it's storing in the database? Because we don't have the database storing the password and the username.
It is not in the database. It is in the memory.
Okay, in the framework memory, you mean to say?
It's a, yes, it's a Tomcat memory. It is going to keep. It's not in the database. But we
Okay.
are going to discuss. The
Okay.
concept is 16 to 18. First of all, you should not worry how it is doing, what exact it is doing, what code we need to write. We need to understand how Spring Boot community, they added this as a package. You see their greatness, adding a small dependency and completely achieving login page, security, redirection, everything is achieved, right? Clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions so far? So everyone is clear, right? Now,
Sir,
the
one general question, sir. Actually, what is the difference between authorization and authentication?
I'm
Somewhere
going to,
we
that is what I'm about to explain. Okay.
okay.
I'm going to explain that all. Okay. So first point is, what exactly the security architecture? Maybe authentication, authorization, mostly I may cover today if time permits, otherwise I'll cover tomorrow. Okay. First of all, what is the security architecture? Okay. Sir, can someone read this diagram and can explain for me if at all is possible? Whatever you understand.
If the security jars are
Ye-
added, the redirection is different. It is giving a login page. If the security jars are not available, it is directly going to the service.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Go ahead.
so what does this say when the client make a calls, I think to application, which is running on 8080 or whatever the port.
Mhm.
So the call first comes to Bootstrap class. as a normal flow, and the bootstrap class decides whether it has to go to the REST controller, regular REST controller, or a security. If the jars are added, then bootstrap class decided that to go to security jar and go for a login, and then it goes to the whatever the form login needs to be validated.
Exactly. It's a very, very good answer. Perfect answer. So let me repeat whatever just now our friend told. Okay. By default, if a request comes from Angular or React or anywhere, okay. By default, if the request is coming from anywhere, and default by normal flow, it will go to bootstrap class only. That's the typical normal flow. By default, bootstrap class is having dispatcher servlet. By default, bootstrap class is having dispatcher servlet, right? And it is going to redirect to the respective REST controller, because dispatcher servlet is having a configuration, which controller, which request mapping it should redirect. So default flow is dispatcher servlet will be there, and dispatcher servlet will redirect the call from bootstrap class to respective REST controller. That is the default flow. But whenever security jars are added, then default flow will change. When security jars are added in the class path, the typically default flow will be changed. So what exactly the default flow or default path is nothing but, what is a flow is nothing but any call is making Springboot internally created a security filter. Springboot internally created a security filter which will tell is it a valid request or invalid request. What is a T filter? Security filter and T filter, both the things are there, right guys? Typically we have a T filter. What it does really? Tea filter, it has completely tea and sugar and tea powder, everything. Now what tea filter is going to do that? It will separate the tea powder and the decoction from the tea. It will separate that layer and we'll get only the tea where we can have. Correct? So typically what exactly my point here is, I have an application where some people will have valid user ID password, some people may not have valid user ID and password. Some people will have may have some valid user ID. So it is going to separate, security filter is going to separate valid request and invalid request. Valid request to go to controller, invalid request goes to login page only. Valid request will go to controller and invalid request goes to login page only. It will not go to REST controller. That kind of filter it is created, and that filter will be loaded as part of security jars. That's a bootstrap class. Okay, that is the internal architecture. Now if I go deep dive, bootstrap class at the rate of Spring Boot application, which is going to have a dispatcher servlet and the default security filter. I told right, security filter will be intercepted. It is created. The default security filter name is, the data structure name is web security configure adapter. Web security configure adapter. That's the default security filter name, which will check, is it a first request? Yes, it's a first request. then it is going to authenticate. It will redirect the login page, then it is going to authenticate. If it's already authenticated, it will redirect it to the controller. So by default, it will tell, is it a first request? Then it will redirect it to the login page. And if it is a second request, is the previous request is authenticated successfully or not? Based on that, it is going to verify the authentication levels. This is the internal architecture of a security. So in this particular process, default security filter is going to do authentication as well as authorization. That is what I'm about to explain. Authentication as well as authorization. Now, what is authentication? What is authorization? Anyone? Just now, one of the friend asked me. Anyone? Anyone can give an answer for that?
Entering into software office is authentication. Anybody can, having ID card can enter into software office, but admin room only few
Correct.
people will have.
Exactly.
That is authorization.
Correct.
In software world, just a regular software world, authentication is a user and password validation. The authorization is once he enters to the application, what all access he have, what are all the authorization access he can do. Like someone have admin access, someone have a user access, someone have a developer access.
Yeah.
That's authorization.
Yes, it's correct. It's a typically right answer. But I'll explain in a same way, but in a detailed way I'm going to explain. Normal example is, sir, I have a multiplex theater. Okay. I have a multiplex theater which has 5 screens. 5 movies are there and totally 5 screens are there. Now I buy a ticket for screen 1. I buy a ticket for screen 1. I can enter into the multiplex. I can enter into the 5 screens theater, the theater which is having 5 screens. My entry is I can enter into the theater only, but my ticket is applied for screen 1 only. I can enter into only on screen 1. Screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, screen 5 are not possible. Okay. Screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, screen 5. By default, I can only watch the movie of screen 1 because I bought the ticket for screen 1. This you need to think of it. Buying a ticket is typically authentication is buying a ticket, and entering into screen 1 is authorization. This is a typically normal authentication as well. Okay. And in a real time, whenever you concern, for example, I'm going to have in a development, product team will be there. They work on product functionality. Cart team will be there. They will work on cart functionality. And payment team is there. They will work on payment functionality. Okay. So payment developers will access only payment functionality. Product developers will access only product functionality. Cart developer will access cart functionality. Something like that we are going to have. Right? So that is the typically authorization. Authentication is entering the application with user ID as well as password. That is authentication. and providing access levels. Providing access levels is the authorization. Clear, sir? The one who asked about authentication versus authorization, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Thank you. Now, totally, how many security types are there is nothing but I'm going to cover total 8 types of securities. Totally 8 types of securities I'm going to cover. Which in depth of security I'm going to cover here. Default security as well as custom security, in-memory authentication as well as in-memory authorization. So first one is default security. That's the starting whatever I shown just now. Only authentication, no authorization. Default security is typically only authentication, no authorization at all. What do you mean by authentication? What only authentication? What do you mean by not only not authorization? Is only one user is there and he can access entire things. No authorization at all. For example, a movie complex is having only one screen and he'll only enter into that screen only. Only authentication, no authorization is typically required here. Make sense? Now, but developer will not write any single line of code. Developer is not going to write any single line of code, and username and password will be given by the framework only. Like username is user and password is automatically generated. Username is user and password is automatically typically generated. That's a default security. And second one is custom security. By default, in case of custom security, here also only authentication but not authorization. But sir, I don't want username as user, password as auto generated. I want my own username, my own password. I can customize. That's a custom security. And in-memory authentication means I'm going to keep some users, more than one user. I'm going to keep 10 users or 20 users, and I'm going to keep some roles. And I want to control both authentication as well as authorization. That is in-memory authentication. That's the next one. And database security, we are going to keep the users and roles in the database, and database is controlling the authentication as well as authorization. And advanced database security for dynamic authentication as well as dynamic authorization, where we are going to encrypt the password. That is advanced database security. And JWT token, JSON web token, that is typically having a JWT. And OAuth, it's a open authentication like SAML, Federation, Okta, all these are part of. So totally these many flavors I'm going to continue in 16 to 18 sessions, which I'm going to take it up in the security. So everyone is clear so far? Any questions, anything as of now in understanding the basic introduction of security and basic concept of security? As of now, any questions?
No, sir. Vijay, one question.
Mhm.
So when we develop a microservices, I mean, like maybe it is advanced, but yeah, just wanted to check. When we are creating services or REST APIs, correct? So how we communicate between them? For that, we need some tokens. So is it some part of the security? And which one we are going to implement for that?
Yeah, because by default, your microservice is typically having distributed microservices where you have a common API gateway. where you are going to write this complete security logic at a gateway side, and the gateway is going to handle the complete things, and framework is internally handles that. Okay, so gateway you have a common security mechanism, and if the security is satisfied, you can enter into the microservice.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, now in order to handle in any of the scenario, okay, by default this is an important diagram, or this is an important tabular format. This is a very important tabular format here, which will be useful for our entire security course. Okay, sir, in any of the code, in 8 varieties, whatever I mentioned here, developer will write 10 to 20% of the code. Framework is going to take care of the remaining portion. For example, if you want to write any, for example, I want to write OAuth. If I want to implement OAuth, assuming that I need to write 100 lines of code, and if I choose Spring Boot as a security framework, then I need to write only 20 lines. Remaining 80 lines will be done by the framework only. 20 lines only you need to write. Remaining 80 lines, framework is going to take care of that. But is it a good or bad, sir? 80% is done by the framework, 20% is developers. Is it a good or bad?
Good.
It's in both. Actually, it speeds up the overall delivery, but you have to make sure that it is only for the framework.
Yeah, in one way it's good, in one way it's bad. Good in the sense. Mhm.
One question is like I'm coming there. So if whatever Spring Boot is providing, if it is not suiting our needs, or if I find more efficient way as per my requirement, can I override whatever Spring Boot is
Yes,
providing?
yes, you can take your own implementation. You can do everything.
Okay.
Okay, right. So first of all, good and bad in terms is, sir, it speed up the process and it given a interface where you can customize as per your needs. That's a good. But bad is nothing but if 100 lines of code is there, if 100 lines developer writes, easily I can understand one by one, one by one, one by one. Whereas if 100 lines, I'm only writing 20 lines. I need to write the 20 lines based on how framework is writing 80 lines. I'm not controlling the code. Framework is controlling me. I need to know in depth of security. So at the time of learning, it's a difficult. That's a bad. At the time of learning only, it's a difficult. Once you learn, it will be easy. Correct, right? So what exactly developer responsibility? What exactly framework responsibility? I'm going to cover. Okay, it will take minimum 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Maybe I'll cover in tomorrow's session. So what is the 70%? Instead of telling generically 70% or 80%, I'll go with the task wise. Which task? What it does. I'm going to cover task wise. It will take 20 minutes of time to explain that. Maybe I'll focus on the topic for tomorrow. Right now, on the security point of view, I'm going to share all the running notes in one so that it will be easy for you. Complete security running notes I'm sharing. Complete security running notes so that easy for you. You can refer. Now today, my ticket booking application starter security, right? That also I'm going to show.
Sir, I had one general question, not with the Spring Security.
No, please go ahead.
Yes. So in your running notes, the screenshots, what you have in the above, there is a dispatcher servlet. So we don't do in the Springboot, we don't do anything specific to dispatcher servlet. Right? The dispatcher servlet is part of
Internally
the
taking.
Spring framework.
Correct.
Spring framework.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct only, right? That's what I explained in the initial classes,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Correct. That's all.
Just want to reconfirm.
No,
Thanks.
nothing. Okay. Thanks everyone for today. We'll meet tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you.
Recording stopped.